All right. 10:09:08. Let's go. Good morning. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Bruce Mullock. Panel members this morning are Peter Reid, Joanne Hayes, and Nimrod Salomon. This will be a virtual public hearing. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event platform that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When his or her item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. You may not agree with the decision of the committee. Decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Procedure. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if requested by the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant and agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. Now, I will comment to you when you are approaching your time. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address And please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The agent or applicant will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application, if substantially revised, in order to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after the speaker has finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion on the application. It will then be taken into committee for a decision. Matters of business. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes been confirmed by members for the last meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there were two hearings on August the 18th, so it's the morning session and the afternoon session, and yes, they have.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest by panel or staff for items in this morning's time slot? Seeing none. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
We have a deferral request came in this morning for item number 9, I believe, 857 Coxwell Avenue.
And moderator, do we have the speaker on, the applicant on line now for number 9? 857 Coxwell, okay, thank you. Okay, then just have that, hold that speaker with us, please, then. And Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
Not this morning.
Thank you. Okay, then let's proceed with the speaker, the applicant, for item number 9, on which there is a deferral request. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this is Nancy Servangiawadi, the applicant on 857 Coxwell Avenue, and we would like to request a deferral on this application as we just realized that we're missing a variance.
Excuse me, Speaker, I'm going to ask you to speak up a little bit, please. We're hearing you, but it's a bit faint, so do speak up, please.
Sure. We would like to ask a requested deferral due to a missing variance on the zoning notice, and we would like to have time to get the new revised notice and the drawings to committee.
Okay, you're requesting deferral because there is a variance that it has been discovered, a variance is missing.
Yeah, and it's been discovered just yesterday.
Okay, and is the missing variance, did you discover that or did city staff discover that?
No, zoning examiner discovered that.
Okay, thank you. Let me just check with the moderator. Moderator, do we have parties standing by to speak on this application?
Mr. Chair, we have one of the owners, Khaled, and we have another speaker, Ed Beebe, on the line as well.
Are there any speakers that are registered in opposition to speak?
I'm not sure if Ed Beebe is in opposition or support, and I have another speaker, actually, Chevalier.
13
There is another speaker registered under Chevalier. I do not see them on the line.
Okay. Let's then, we'll assume that the owner is in agreement with the request to defer. Let's go to the speaker that we're not quite sure about position and check with them on this request.
Hello.
Good
Can
morning.
you hear me okay?
We're hearing you loud and clear. Good
Okay,
morning.
awesome. My name's Edward Beebe. I live in the neighborhood around the corner from the house at 38 Airside Avenue. And I'm in opposition to the house.
To the application.
Variance.
Okay, let me ask you this, just to bring you up to date.
Sure.
This morning, we've had a request by the applicant to defer consideration of the application. So if that was to be granted by the committee, the application would not be heard today or decided upon today. The reason that or that the applicant has decided or asked to defer is that the city zoning examiner has found out that the application, in fact, is missing one minor variance, which it should have in order to completely reflect the request. So that's why the request has been made. Would you be in agreement or opposed to the idea of deferring the application?
No, I'm totally fine with that.
You're fine with that. I appreciate your coming on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay then, panel, there we have it. Request to defer has been found out that one variance is missing. And so this is yours to decide whether we hear the application now or defer. I'll look to panel members for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes.
In light of the fact that there is a variance missing from the application, and also the report from planning, I think that it would be appropriate to defer the application to ensure that we know exactly what's before us, but also for the opportunity and encourage the applicant to have some discussions with city planning staff surrounding the comments that they have made, and also to reach out to the community, and especially the people who have noted on record their opposition to the file, so that everybody is clear the next time this comes before us. So I would agree to deferral, and that would be my motion.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to defer application number 9. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is carried by unanimous vote. The application is deferred.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do need a motion to adopt the minutes or confirm the minutes from the hearing. We didn't do a vote.
Oh, we do need a vote on that. Okay. All right. I thought we just needed to confirm that with you. Sorry. Okay. Panel members, we're just going to backtrack a little bit to the business from early in the meeting, and the Deputy Secretary Treasurer explained to us that there were minutes for 2 previous hearings which had been confirmed by the members on those hearings. So we need a motion to adopt those minutes, please. Motion by Mr. Solomon. Is there a second to that? It is seconded by Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to adopt those minutes. All those in favor? And that motion is carried by unanimous vote. Those minutes are adopted. Okay, then at this stage, we'll move back to our agenda list to number 1 and proceed to address the items in the order they're listed. We begin with item number 1, 524 Eastern Avenue. And on this application, the committee has before it the following materials. There are Materials submitted by the applicant. Copy of plan of survey, site plans, floor plans, elevations. And we have correspondence from Transportation Services and a staff report from Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And moderator, I'll ask you, do we have the applicant with us? Okay. Good morning, applicant. Please join us by stating your name.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. Thank you for your time. My name is Timothy Groot, and I will be presenting the application for 524 Eastern Avenue.
Thank you, Timothy. Timothy, I'm going to check with fellow panel members whether they would like to hear a presentation on the application, or perhaps they have questions for you. Panel members, do we need a presentation? Do you have questions for the applicant? There's a question, Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
I would just like the applicant to briefly speak to the FSI being requested, and is it reflective of that immediate neighborhood?
The FSI?
That's correct. You're asked to comment on the FSI, please, whether it's representative of the neighborhood.
Yes, I believe the architecture fits within the character of the neighboring buildings as well as the character of the neighborhood as a whole. The new multi-unit design parallels with Toronto's official plan to move forward with densification and to provide more opportunities for housing as well.
I have a question for you, and just to, it's my sense that the additional FSI does not actually impact what I see from the street in looking at the house. Is that correct?
That is true. The elevation of the house when viewed from this street is very similar to the original design, save for the dormer addition, which has formal precedent as neighboring houses have them along Eastern Avenue.
Thank you very much. Okay. If there are no further questions, then I'll look to panel. Let's take this into committee for a decision. I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, having reviewed the materials on file, I find that, and the area is certainly undergoing transformation. It is a compact area of the street with the row houses. I think the addition of a duplex and the addition of the housing stock is appropriate. I think the variances being requested are not out of line, and I think what's being presented is sympathetic to the streetscape. So if my colleagues have no further questions, I would move to a motion to approve the application.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion, that is seconded by Mr. Solomon. So moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, panel moves along to item number 2. 354 Wellington Street East. On this application, we are dealing with the following materials before us. Those submitted by the applicant. There's a heritage impact assessment. There is parking and loading study prepared by BA Group. There are presentation materials from Mark Sterling, the agent. We have...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, are we not on 257 Charles Street West?
If you will excuse me, you are precisely right, and thank you for catching me on that one. Okay, yes. Yes, okay, now I get it. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit, please. Item number 2 is 57 Charles Street West. on 57 Charles Street West. The committee has before it applicant's materials, 7 interior photographs submitted by the agent, plus covering letter by the agent, and site statistics from the agent. There is a commenting report from City Planning, received in January of this year. So, moderator, is the agent with us? I'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Andy Verhill from AVA Design Studio, and I'm the applicant for this application at 57 Charles.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, panel members, presentation if you'd like one, or questions for the agent. Seeing none, we can move then to take the application into committee and can move to a motion if anyone is so inclined. Mr. Salomon, go ahead.
I think the variances are minor. The actual increase in number of units is only 2, and the increase in GFA is 60 square meters, which I believe is minor. So I would move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Reed. It is moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote to carry the motion, and that application is approved without conditions. Thank you. Item number 3 is 354 Wellington Street West. And on this application, we have before us the following communications. Applicant's materials, heritage impact statement from GBCA Architects, parking and loading study from BA Group, presentation materials from the agent. There's correspondence from City Planning and Transportation Services to consider. And on this application, there is correspondence in opposition. And I'm going to give a list of this because it's important. So correspondence in opposition in from 36 Blue Jays Way, Unit 916. Unit 3, G13, 350 Wellington West. From 36 Blue Jays Way, Adrian Kuipers. From Unit 925, 36 Blue Jays. Unit 1125, Unit 1520, Blue Jays. From Richard Rovenata, 36 Blue Jays. From Unit 1504, 36 Blue Jays. All those received during the month of August. There are in total 56 form letters in opposition, signed by the owners or occupants of the following units at 354. The following is G11, G12, M25, 9 and 315 at 350. Units 302, 306, 314, 410, 518, 610, 622, 705, 722, 730, 906, 924, 1308, 1311, 1317, 1323, 1507, 1514, 1523 at 36 Blue Jays. From units G19, M4, M5, 7, M19, 209, 211, 212, 303, 403, 408, 416, and 420 at 350 Wellington West. Plus from units 510, 512, 705, 727 at 36 Blue Jays. Also from units 204, 302, 310, 312, 406, and 410 at 350 Wellington West. Also from units 1120 and 1125 at 36 Blue Jays. And finally from units M17, 305, 417 at 350 Wellington Street West. Also from units 612, 1104, 1112, 1132, and 1508 at 36 Blue Jays Way. Received August 25th. So, on this application, moderator, we have the agent with us? Okay. And can you, by current reckoning, how many speakers do you have registered to speak?
Apart from the owner and the agent, I have 5 additional speakers.
Plus 5, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's also materials listed from the supplementary form as well.
Thank you very much. Just to complete that materials under consideration, there are recently received materials, actually received today on this application. So just so those people know that we are in receipt of those materials. Committee has before it also correspondence from Victoria Curcio at 350 Wellington, Anna Coulter at Unit 916, 36 Blue Jays, Joel Farber, a solicitor representing Toronto Standard Condo Corporation, numbers 1628 and 1555 at 350 Wellington, and 36 Blue Jays. And there are 6 new additional form letters in opposition. These are signed by the owners and occupants of units 1304 and 1517, 36 Blue Jays, unit 1510 at 36 Blue Jays, unit G13, 350 Wellington, unit 354, 36 Blue Jays, and finally unit 1117, 36 Blue Jays. At this point then I will ask the agent to join the meeting, please, by stating your name and address.
Good morning, it's Mark Sterling, and I live at 111 Clendenin Avenue in Toronto.
Good morning, Mark. Mark, you will have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please begin now.
Okay, I wonder if there's a slide presentation that could be put up. Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Mark Sterling, and I'm the planner on the file for the minor variance application that's before you this morning. I have this presentation which has a fair bit of detail in it, but I guess I would like to skip over some of it in order to address some of the concerns that I've seen raised in the letters that you just mentioned that are before the committee today, which are generally about the scale of the project, the potential shadow impacts on amenity spaces in the public realm. One issue that was raised in almost all of the letters is a concern that the application was accompanied by a waiver form rather than a zoning examiner's notice. And I could just address that briefly. The owner has received a zoning notice from the City of Toronto in response to the application. The waiver form was submitted because the height variance that was listed in the zoning notice noted the following, that the actual proposed height cannot be confirmed because all proposed rooftop mechanical has not been shown. And so in order to try and work out the detail of this in time for the hearing, it was deemed more appropriate to put the zoning waiver in. We don't anticipate any other variances to emerge. It's really just a kind of a detailed question about where rooftop equipment will be eventually. The height that's proposed is the top of the elevator overrun, so it'd be the tallest portion of the building. Any rooftop mechanical will be below that. So if we could just go to slide 2 in the slideshow. I'd like to point out that this is a 3-story addition to an existing building in an area that's essentially surrounded by tall buildings. For example, across the street to the south at 400 Front Street, which is known on the south side of Wellington Street, we have an approved project at 59 and 57 stories. There's a whole series of other tall buildings which you can see in this view, including the Bisha condominium building just to the northeast, and a number of existing and improved tall buildings on King Street, as well as one over on Spadina Avenue, north of Clarence Square. So we're talking about what is, in my opinion, a relatively modest addition to a mid-rise building that's in the middle of a series of tall buildings. Many of the letters submitted to the committee refer to shadow impacts on the 13th floor outdoor amenity space of the existing building just to the east. I can confirm to the committee that there will be no shadow impacts on the outdoor amenity space in question. It's actually located at a height that's above the upper portions of the proposed addition. And I've got there's in this presentation, there's a slide, a shadow study that's included. And if you go to those slides, you can see them on slides 15 through 26. Just scroll down a little bit. These are the plans. Actually, if you could just go back one slide, where you can see the rooftop amenity space that's in that on the 13th floor level above the 12th floor of the existing building. And if you continue on down, the next series of slides, you could just scroll through them quickly, but this is a shadow study that shows incremental additional shadow in red. So we're going through the September period. We're at noon, keep going, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and so on. If you stop right around there, 3:18, 4:18, you can see the 13th floor amenity space, I hope, which is that sort of beige square area. There's no shadow from the proposed building at that time. And that's something that's been mentioned in a number of the different letters that you've seen. If you go down just to the bottom, next to the last slide, this black one, yeah, that's great. So that's the list of the variances that are before you today. I can confirm that there are a number of variances. These are the variances that were listed in the zoning notice that we received, the most recent one. And just going through them one by one, you can see that there's a couple that are dealing with the parking spaces and accessible parking spaces required. I can tell you that, as you mentioned, BA Group has prepared a parking and loading study for the area, and they have their review confirmed that the existing loading supply meets both bylaw requirements, 569/2013 and 438/86, and the additional 49 dwelling units can be dealt with by the existing loading facilities on site. BA did a site parking utilization study, which concluded that it's appropriate to provide no additional parking spaces on the basis of the parking demand generated by the 49 new proposed units.
I must ask you for your final comments, please.
Okay. I just would say that the majority of these variances are a product of building the existing building on top of the footprint of the building below. So the setbacks that are proposed for which variances are required are the same setbacks that exist on the building below, the existing building below. I just would note that in addition to the heritage impact assessment that was submitted, I also prepared a full planning rationale report as part of the application process. And in my opinion, as a professional planner, the proposed addition meets the 4 tests that are necessary in order for the variances to be approved.
Your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now, moderator, we shall proceed with the registered speakers. And, okay, do we have Adam Simkin with us?
Mr. Chair, it seems we no longer have Adam with us. I can try giving him a call and we can move on to Corey Dales.
Okay. So we'll ask Corey Dales to join us by stating your name, please.
Sure. My name is Corey Dales, and I'm the owner of Unit 1504 at 36 Blue Jays Way.
Good morning, Corey. Okay. Corey, you have 5 minutes now to address the committee with your concerns about the application. Please proceed.
Thank you. So, as stated, my name is Corey Dales. I am the owner of Unit 1504 of 36 Blue Jays Way, a property physically attached and directly overlooking the proposed development site. The application seeks approval for 14 variances, which are related to parking, height, and setbacks, and I oppose this application as, in my opinion, it fails to meet and prove that these variances are minor, appropriate, and desirable, and maintain the general intent of the zoning bylaws and plans. Just by the numbers, the requested variances are not minor. The applications ask for reductions ranging between 42% to 100%, which alone are significant amounts. However, the impact on the community and our building is what really misaligns this application. Is the application masked to fit and provide appropriate transition and scale? No. The building currently meets these requirements by gradually transitioning between a 16-story building to a 13-story building and 7 before arriving at the 3-story townhomes and eventually Clarence Park Square. If the height variance is approved, the building would be raised to 42 meters, more than doubling what is permitted under bylaws and creating a drastic transition between a 10-story building, including its mechanical penthouses, to a 3-story historical townhome. This is not an appropriate transition in scale for an area that has been deemed to be a smaller neighborhood street with distinctive characteristics. Does the application minimize the impact of shadows and the impact on neighboring properties? No. The application concedes that it will result in shadows cast onto 50% of the townhomes in the morning, many of which have rooftop patios and outdoor space, and in the afternoons onto buildings to the north, east, and south of the site. The heritage study, which contained the shadow study, was produced in 2018 and is out of date. It does not take into account any of the recent or planned developments for the area, a clear requirement under the plans. The study focuses only on the impact of the heritage sites. It does not actually make comment on any of the significant impacts on the buildings surrounding it. Does the application preserve light, view, and privacy? No. If approved, my unit alone would lose 25% of its view, with light and sightlines now blocked from its addition. This loss only increases as we go lower in the building, with some units losing even maybe potentially the last available light and sightlines they have due to developments north of this site. Our 13th floor terrace, one of the only outdoor spaces owned and operated by our corporation, will lose over half of its westward view due to mechanical penthouses that now will be blocking its sightlines. In addition, these mechanical penthouses will actually place mechanical devices facing directly towards our amenity spaces and towards people's homes. Does this application preserve privacy for the surrounding buildings? No. In fact, it's actually encouraging the exact opposite by doubling the number of long-term units for the hotel, which are actually intended to have a regular turnover of occupants. This turnover only increases the number of eyes on our windows, increasing the opportunity for loss of privacy. The application further exacerbates this issue by requesting to build the additions 8.7 meters away from the existing building, well within the required 15-meter distance required under the bylaws. The application will place windows facing windows of people's homes, or worse, windows now facing walls. These homes were, under the application's own acknowledgement, were completed in 2004 and have been operating for 16 years, establishing the built form of this community. Privacy is further eroded by the application's plan to establish a terrace on the rooftop of the 10th floor. How this terrace will be used is not outlined or defined within the application. Will it be used only by these new units? Will it be used by the existing long-term units? Will it be used by the entire hotel? Or maybe it'll be operated as an event space where it'll be rented out for profit? Adding the bonus offer of views into our people's homes at only 8.7 meters away. Furthermore, the application fails to address other issues or bylaws, such as nuisance lighting, wind impact, or noise from mechanical units that are now placed directly outside amenity areas of homes, issues which could have been mitigated if they actually used a zoning examiner. And finally, does this application demonstrate that it can protect public health and safety as is required under the provincial policy statement and provincial plans? No. The addition would be constructed over physically attached and fully occupied residential condos, yet it provides no engineering reports regarding structural integrity or construction methods. So should this application be approved, we'll be living within a construction site. The developer will be inflicting undue disturbance through noise and vibrations upon the building. Part of people's homes, their balconies and outdoor spaces, might no longer be usable due to the construction above. The risk of damage to personal property or worse, loss of life, is just far too great to approve without any justification or documentation.
I must ask you for your final comments, please.
Perfect. Simply put, this application and its variances are not minor and do not align with the intent or objectives of the plan. Why does it need to be doubled in height be allowed? Why does it need to be built so close to an existing building? How is it appropriate or desirable, or how does it benefit the community? The application provides no answers because there is no justification for this request. In fact, the application has no benefit to the community and negatively impacts its views, lights, and privacy, which are significant and major concerns for people's homes. The application has completely failed to justify its request and must be rejected in its entirety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the speaker? Okay. We'll move then to the next registered speaker. And I'll ask the moderator. Who will that be, moderator?
I believe if you were moving down the list, it would be Kevin Matt.
Okay. We'll ask now Kevin Matt to join the meeting, please, by stating your name.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Kevin Matt. I am the owner and occupant of Unit 1520 at 36 Blue Jays Way, and I am speaking in opposition to the application.
Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation to the panel. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. I will be brief. The committee has before it the letter that I submitted in opposition to the application, and you know, the proposed addition is not in any way a minor variance and does not in any way meet the 4 tests that are outlined in the Act. And the picture on page 14 of the applicant's own presentation, which he flashed up briefly, I think demonstrates it quite well. Like he's proposing to build a 3-story addition to an existing condominium unit that is like 20 odd feet from people's windows. He highlighted in his presentation the rooftop amenity, but keep in mind that under that rooftop amenity in the westward facing side of the building are like people's windows, right? You can see them there on that screen, the little white bars running down, and facing directly into that is going to be long stay condominium units right up to the top of the amenity. So it's great that there's no shadow on the amenity. I'm not a shadow study expert, but you know, let's give the applicant a little bit of good faith here. I mean, that's awesome. But there's certainly an impact for the folks directly facing into what are now long stay hotel rooms. In my submission to the committee, I do outline in a fair amount of detail how many of the minor variances, requested by the applicant fail to enhance livability by preserving the privacy, views, and access to light of the adjacent buildings. The applicant, by his own admission, is not proposing to add even one disabled parking space. This is contrary to the plan and just shows a complete lack of willingness to ensure that the needs of people with disabilities and seniors are met. Corey touched on the transition in scale between the proposed building and the addition over Clarence Park. If you look at page 7 of my submission, I don't know if you can pop that up, you can clearly see that, you know, it was a lovely transition before, and it was in keeping with the plan. I mean, I think the developer originally put together quite a good development that steps back from the park in a logical progression. And yeah, sure, There are taller buildings on the major arterial roads today, as contemplated in the plan. But this kind of stepped development back from the park is exactly what the plan is, yeah, thank you, exactly what the plan seeks to promote. And then this sort of monstrous yellow carbuncle that will be perched atop an existing building will produce an inappropriate transition between the public space in the park and the built environment. So, you know, it's not in keeping with the plan, the zoning code, the bylaws, any of the planning documents proposed by the city. And last but not least, again, keep this slide up, thank you. The addition that the applicant is proposing does reduce opportunities for surveillance over Clarence Park. Currently, there are a number of units in all the adjacent buildings that can provide opportunities for surveillance over the park. That's something that the plan seeks to promote. And those views will be blocked. So, I mean, there's no getting around that. You can't surveil a park when you're looking into a hotel. So I'll leave that there for now. I did want to, the applicant brought up his parking study, so I just wanted to comment on that a little bit additionally. You know, it's I don't know, 30 degrees outside today, 28 degrees outside, sunny and nice, and you know, we all kind of forget that we have winter in Canada. I do note that the applicant performed his parking study quite some time ago, so before a lot of additional development has taken place, and also kind of in the dead of winter immediately prior to a pandemic. If you look at the historical weather...
I must ask you for your final comments, please.
Okay, thank you. If you look at the historical weather for that week, it was an abysmal week, and I do feel that the demand for parking was depressed over that period of time, plus it was the onset of the pandemic. All in all, I mean, I think this is a deficient application. It in no way meets the four tests, and it should be denied in whole by the committee. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the applicant? Hearing none, we'll move along to the next registered speaker. Okay then, we'll ask Joel Farber, please, to join the meeting by stating your name.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we do. Good morning. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good morning. I'm the solicitor for the condominium corporations at 350 Wellington and 36 Blue Jays Way. That's 1555. 1555 is the taller building that's immediately next to the proposed addition, and 1628 is the condo corporation below the proposed addition. I've submitted correspondence to the committee dated August 25th in opposition on behalf of the condo corporations.
You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
I speak to for the condo corporations themselves, and of course all of the unit owners are also participating on their individual behalfs. Now, I won't. I'll try and not repeat what Corey and Kevin have advised the committee. So I'll make some additional comments. In my submission, the proposal is not in conformity with the general intent and purpose of the bylaw. The general intent and purpose of the bylaw is really to create a low to mid-rise mixed-use development. And what the applicant in my submission is attempting to do is use the existing sort of general provisions of the zoning bylaw to create a site-specific exception zone to permit the proposed addition instead of the more appropriate process, which is to go through a zoning bylaw amendment process, which would provide for a more comprehensive review and appropriate consultation and deal with all the matters that Corey and Kevin have raised in their submissions. The provisions contain, the provisions of the bylaw currently contain a specific set of standards that the applicant proposes to drastically change in certain respects, including with respect to the height, the building depth, the setbacks, the critical building separation to phase one that these previous speakers have mentioned, in the parking issue. The suggestion that the applicant is simply replicating the existing situation in terms of the setbacks and things like that, to my mind, doesn't provide the justification that the applicant needs, because those setbacks are in relation to the 7-story building or the six-story building, not in relation to an 11-story building, which would have a different set of considerations. So I don't think that the applicant can simply rely on the existing setbacks and the existing approvals in support of the proposed addition. In terms of the desirability for the appropriate development or use of the land, Kevin mentioned this, but I'll make another point about it. The applicant's planner suggested that the building is that the subject property is surrounded by tall buildings. That's clearly not accurate. That's not the case. To the west of the building is, and Kevin mentioned the word transition, but to the west of the building is a low-rise heritage situation on Clarence Square, and also to the west of the building is a no-rise situation in the park. So there clearly is not, this building is not surrounded by tall buildings, contrary to what the applicant's planner has suggested. There's no question that the proposed addition has a number of impacts that have been commented on by all of the unit owners, including the speakers, and all of the submission letters. And because of those impacts and the nature of the impacts, it takes it out of the realm of being minor, in addition to simply the significance of the variances in terms of the numerical changes. And then my last comment, Mr. Chair, is that you can see in respect of the opposition that there hasn't been a substantial or significant enough consultation with the condo corporations or the public as to how the addition and the proposed use of the facilities and the shared facilities and the common facility of the condo will be impacted by the proposed addition, or how it will even be carried out. And for those reasons, I would ask that the committee decline this application. This application should go through the zoning bylaw amendment process for a more fulsome review and consultation, and is not appropriate for a application under Section 45 of the Planning Act. Those would be my submissions, Mr. Chair, subject to any questions you or the committee might have.
Thank you. Panel members, questions of this speaker? No. Hearing none. Moderator, have we been able to raise Adam Simkin, or are we now going to be hearing from Richard Romanata?
We can move on to Richard, and then I can try to call Adam one more time.
Very good. Okay, we'll ask Richard Romanata to join us, please, by stating your name.
Richard Raventa. I'm a resident and owner at 90336 Blue Jays Way.
Thank you very much. Okay, you have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I wanted to speak today in opposition of the proposed minor variance application. As already stated, this is not minor in nature. Like many of the applications you'll be hearing from today, this is not changing the lot size, adding a basement walkout, adding a floor to a single-family home or an abandoned building. This is a major change seeking to add multiple stories of flooring above an occupied condo attached to a second condo in a building that has been complete for over 15 years. This will have a huge impact on the lives of the immediately surrounding 350 plus homes, as well as the lives of the hundreds if not thousands of residents and visitors to the downtown core. First, to be clear, this is not an application to amend one building owned fully by the applicant. This is a complex building with almost 10 different corporations sharing one physically attached space. There are 2 condos, a hotel, 2 restaurants, and multiple office spaces. This is major and unheard of, and these bylaws, which help protect us, need to be upheld, especially against plans that have offered no substantial rationale for why they should be struck down. Second, I want to focus on one topic that I raised in my written summary sent to the committee, that of parking, or the bylaws 1, 2, and 11 in the supplied list, some of what Kevin has touched on. The applicant wants to add enough new units that under these bylaws, It says 30 additional parking spots should be added, plus one accessible parking space, but they plan to add 0. They supplied a parking study from January of 2020 that concluded that based on observed parking levels, there would be no need to add more spaces. If this parking study is flawed in certain respects and does not show how this can have major ramifications in the crowded King and Spadina area. The parking in our building, like the building itself, is complex. Through one entrance, you access the parking area of the 2 phases. Because this parking space services a hotel along with the aforementioned condos, restaurants, and more, it is publicly accessible, and how crowded it is heavily dependent on the time of year. The study performed in January of 2020 does not take this into account. Parking in January is different from any other time of year. People are staying in from the cold. The Rogers Center just down the street has fewer events, meaning 50,000 fewer people in the area. There are fewer tourists in the area, or festival events such as TIFF, and just fewer people overall who travel to the downtown core to eat and take in the nightlife. Parking is much busier during the warmer months. This is the first flaw. The second is that the study does not take into account the context of the surrounding area. As mentioned by the applicant, there are several large developments that are increasing the density of the King Spadina zone. I have counted 7 at various stages coming online. The development of the largest impact is actually the one the applicant pointed out at 404 Front Street West, which is currently, as you can see from the images that he supplied, is currently a massive parking lot across from our building. If you do refer to, if it can be brought up, my written summary at Exhibit A near the end, you'll see a photo though where this part that shows the parking lot is packed during the day, and it shows how crowded it is. 400 Front Street West will be built over this parking lot. And if the development follows local bylaw to ensure the minimum number of parking spots, those spots will primarily cater to the density being added by the new buildings, which means a total net loss of available parking in the area. This means people will find parking elsewhere, especially because currently outdoor parking is cheaper. But if the price is the same and there are overall fewer spots, more people will be parking in our building. If this bylaw is not upheld and the appropriate number of spots added, then this would impact the thousands of people visiting in the downtown core, along with people who live here. This is a nuance the study does not take into consideration. It also appears to miscalculate how many spots are actually required, by at least 2, by not counting the 0.35 spaces per 100 square meters of offices. We have at least 4 major offices in the building, not counting home businesses. We also have 2 very popular downtown restaurants in the building, and the study has taken 0 of the 0 to 3.5 per 100 square meters outlined in the bylaw to account for them. Yet because they're so popular and packed all the time, I would imagine there should be a number higher than 0 that should have been used. So not only are they trying to bypass the 30 spots, there's the addition of 2 to 10 the study is discounting. Another issue is accessible parking. We currently only have 4 spots in the building, one of which was reserved for the applicant Starwood. However, according to current bylaws, you should already have 11, and with this new proposal, 12. Instead, we have 4, which is a third of what we should have. Parking is just one issue and multiple that I addressed in my written correspondence, and I hope the committee will take what they hear today and what has been submitted and see how major and negative an impact this application will have in the downtown core and decline it, because the application is not minor in nature, it's very major, and on paper, without the proper context, it may seem simple as adding 3 stories, but it's not, and it's unheard of. Thank you for taking some time to listen to me.
Thank you for your presentation. Panel members, questions for this speaker? No. Okay, then I'll just check with the moderator now on status of registered speakers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's all. I wasn't able to get Adam on the line after multiple
Thanks
attempts.
for trying. Okay. So we have now heard all the registered speakers who are available to us on this. We'll now go back to the agent, and we're going to go to the agent for rebuttal on these points, an opportunity for such. The things we've heard from the speakers that have just spoken are concerned regarding the mass and scale of the proposal. Concern with respect to an existing transition from the park up through low-rise, the houses on the square, and how that transition will be damaged by this proposal. Loss of sunlight discussed. Concern about the mechanical on the top of the new proposal, how it will face the amenity space on the other portions of the existing building. We heard a general comments that this simply was not minor, that it can't be considered minor by any calculation in terms of its many impacts. And that it's not, and then in fact it was pointed out or suggested that it's not in keeping with the intent of the bylaw and might better have been dealt with as a zoning matter. It was also brought to our attention by one speaker, his contention that the parking plan is deficient, that the parking needs in the area vary dramatically seasonally, and that this parking plan reflects a depths of winter situation rather than a height of summer situation. So those, applicant, are the topics we'd like you to address in your rebuttal, please. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and go, I hope I got my notes here correct. I'll go with them in order. In terms of the transition to the park and the transition to the heritage buildings just to the west, in my opinion, a 10-story building versus a 7-story building is a relatively fine distinction to make about stepping down in height in relation to those park and heritage resources. We do have a heritage impact assessment that addressed the transition specifically to those heritage buildings and concluded that the total 10 stories that's proposed would affect a similar and an appropriate transition from a heritage perspective. I think we heard something about eyes on the park as well from one of the speakers. There are windows in all of these units that are proposed. They also will surveil the park. So in my opinion, the transition, while not as dramatic a stepping down as is currently occurring in the existing building, when taken in context of the scale of buildings just beyond the proposed development, which are quite a bit taller, this 3-story addition fits well within the kind of the general approach that's intended in the zoning bylaws and in the official plan about transition and stepping down. There was some discussion about the mechanical. I mean, these are always concerns. I'm not the architect for the project or the mechanical engineer, but the city in its permit application processes would require screening and noise abatement and mitigation issues if there were any to be had. So I'm confident that those kinds of concerns can be addressed through the more detailed design process that would continue on with this project. Yeah, there's a discussion about whether this is a rezoning or a minor variance. As I mentioned, I prepared a complete planning rationale report, which provides the justification for the scale of the project, the appropriateness of the setbacks relative to both the official plan and zoning bylaw standards that were in place at the time of the application. And I stand by my assessment that these are minor in nature. I'm not, I think it was characterized as relying on the conditions on the building below as a justification for the shape of the building. Well, it's actually the only way to make an addition on top of a building like the one we have is to actually build it at the same perimeter as the building below, so that structural continuity can be provided. We have information from the architects on the project that this is a structurally feasible project to build, and I rely on them for that. There's questions regarding the parking. I can't really comment on the parking study other than to comment that the BA Group is a well-known and reputable firm that produces parking studies all over the city of Toronto, and I rely on their assessment, notwithstanding the comments about the time of year. That was the time of year when we could do the study. Not in keeping with the zoning, I think that if one looks around at the kind of growth that's taking place in this part of Kings Spadina, and I can inform the committee that I was the director of urban design for the city of Toronto when the bylaws for this area were first created, and I've worked on a number of projects in immediate proximity to this site in recent times, and I have a pretty good sense of let's say, the difference between what we find in the letter of the law, the zoning bylaw for this area, and what is actually emerging as the future approved context for development in this area. And in my opinion, a small addition like this one is much more minor, let's say, is minor to a great degree in relation to the scale of 50 and 60-story buildings that we're seeing being proposed and approved immediately adjacent to this property. So I think that that's a concern, in my opinion, dealing with, for the committee to deal with this as a set of minor variances, I think is appropriate. And as I commented on in my presentation in that list that I put forward, we really are replicating the shape of the building below, and that is, in my opinion, an appropriate thing to do at this scale and in this location. Hope that
Your time is up. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Panel members, questions for the agent? Hearing none. At this stage, the panel will take the matter into committee for discussion and moving on toward a motion. So, panel members, let's have some discussion on the application, and we'll ask Mr. Salomon to begin.
I'm happy to start. Yeah, I do have concerns with this application. I'm concerned with the impacts of the new 3-story portion on the adjacent residential units to the east. The distance will be reduced from what is required under the zoning bylaw of 15 meters from those windows to down to 8.7 meters. I think there's privacy and view issues that are impacted on those people who live in those units. And I also have concerns with the parking study that was done, given that it was done in the depths of winter in January. And I think what the residents have shown us in terms of pictures and so on indicate that there's extensive outdoor surface parking during the non-winter months. And so I didn't get any sense from the applicant explaining what we had seen from the pictures. And so I don't believe that the proposal is appropriate or desirable.
Thank you very much. Further comment? Mr. Reed.
Sure. I disagree with Mr. Salomon. I think that this is a defensible application. I think that it is relatively minor in its impacts, and I think that's mostly because the context of the area has really changed since this building was constructed, and I think these towers going up all around it, being 50 and 60 stories as approved, I think adding these 3 stories is going to have a very small incremental impact. I do appreciate the fact that 8-meter distance versus 15, but I think that is for just a limited portion, and yeah, that will have impacts on those windows, but I think that it is still defensible. I think this is a complete application, and the heritage report and parking report support it. But I think the main thing for me is that the context has changed, and I think the relationship with the park is appropriate. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
My only concern with respect to this application is the separation distance. I think that the addition of the 3 stories in its relationship to the park is fine. I'm not concerned about the parking, but I do have concerns with respect to the impact on separation distance between the units, and that is my concern with the only variance that I'm concerned with respect to this application.
So your thought on it would be to,
I can't support it on the basis of the separation.
thank you. For my part, I'm persuaded by what I've read and heard this morning that the variances proposed create impacts that are not minor, and nor are they desirable. It is the building is the existing structure there, as was pointed out. It's a complex structure with various owners, and the separation concerns me. The transition from the park in this particular site, from the park through the Victorian townhomes and up, is interrupted, and with this particular site in mind, not the ones across the road and so on, it's my view that this is not desirable, so I would not be supporting it either. Okay. I then look to panel for a motion with respect to the application. Mr. Salomon?
Yeah, I'll move a motion to refuse the variances.
Is there a second for that motion? It is seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to refuse the application. All those in favor of that motion, show of hands, please. Thank you. Those opposed? The record to show that Mr. Reed is in opposition. The motion is carried and the application is refused. And with that, the panel moves along to our next application, which is number 4, 514 Pape Avenue. On 514 Pape Avenue, panel has before it the applicant's materials. There is a previous Committee of Adjustment decision from 2012. We have correspondence in support from 510 Pape Avenue and correspondence in opposition from 518 Pape Avenue. And moderator, on this application, we have just the agent with us. Okay. Very good. I'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good morning. My name is Kurt Schmidt.
Good morning to you. Panel members, we could have a presentation on this, or if you have questions for the agent. Go ahead, Mr. Salomon.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think there's a third-story rear balcony, and is there any privacy screening that is being proposed there?
Hello, applicant. That question is for you.
Hi, Mr. Schmidt. You're unmuted.
Thank you. I'm just pulling up that sheet. I was actually prepared for more questions on the front than the rear, so just one moment. It wasn't specified in detail, but I know on the owner's portion, the guards on the left and the right would definitely be something that they would want to have for their own privacy, to have those to be somewhat obscured on the two sides. But it's not spelled out on the plans that way.
Thank you.
If I could elaborate just quickly, the only reason we're coming here for this request now is because the application was processed so long ago that the new Toronto zoning bylaw came into effect, which triggered us to have to go back to committee. The actual size of the front addition is slightly smaller than it was before, by a foot or so. But otherwise, the application is essentially identical as what was previously approved. The owners just didn't have the funds at the time to complete the work, and so we're coming back again to update with the documentation. Things like the GFA, we have a FSI now instead of GFA, but the numbers are essentially the same in square meters. Sorry, I can't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. The letter from 518 PAPE cites concern about water drainage and loss of sunlight. Your thoughts on that?
The water drainage, we have to manage water like we have on all these homes. It's not a lot of space. The water drainage has to go and remain on the individual's property. That's going to end up going towards PAPE Avenue, obviously, with the way the grading is overall. 518 is actually uphill from this site, so I don't see that as a concern for that individual neighbor. Loss of light, if you look at the street view of this whole series of homes, it's going to be the same height as the adjacent homes. And the intention with the balcony off the back of the second floor was to actually pull the rear face of the home so there wouldn't be a vertical straight up. So there'll be there shouldn't be an appreciable difference of the shadow at the rear. It might be actually less than what it is right now because we have a ridge going down the center of the existing roof line. And so that's going to be actually flipped, going across the house, just like the house directly to the south at 512.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? If not, we can take the application into committee for a motion, please. Is anyone ready with a motion? Yes, Ms. Hayes.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanne. I think this is a very well-designed application, and it's modest and reasonable in its requests. I think the variances themselves are minor. And the density of this is just on the third floor, and that's been lessened. The impacts of that have been lessened by retaining a slope in the front and having a dormer. The only thing I would add is to Nimrod's point, what he raised earlier is preventing some overlook. So I'd add a condition of screening on the north and south portions of the rear patio with our regular 1.5 meter opaque condition. So that would be the only condition. So I'd be happy to bring a motion for approval subject to that.
Thank you. Second to that motion, it is seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to screening on the rear balcony. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried unanimously, and the application is so approved. Thank you. And panel moves along to item number 5, 72 Indian Road. Here we have applicant's materials. There's a staff report from Urban Forestry, and there are 2 form letters in support from 70 and 74 Indian Road. And I shall ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi, my name is Binath Jagan Mohan from Velocity Design Associates.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Panel members, on this application, do you have any questions? Would you like a presentation? Don't appear to be any questions. All right, then I'll look to panel to proceed to a motion then, please. Mr. Solomon.
I believe the variances are minor in nature, and I would move approval of the variances with the condition of urban forestry number 1.
Thank you very much. Second to that motion. It is seconded by Ms. Hayes. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion is carried unanimously, and the application is approved, subject to forestry. Thank you. Application number 6 is 9 Spruce Street. On 9 Spruce, we have applicant's materials. We have correspondence from Heritage Preservation. There is a staff report from Engineering and Construction. Correspondence both in support and in opposition. In support from 433 Parliament, and there are 19 form letters in support by owners and occupants of 8, 9, 10 Ralston Avenue, 433, 437, 439, 441, 448 Parliament Street, 322 Sackville, and 13, 15, 17, 19, 24, 25, 26, 28, and 29, plus 41 Spruce. In opposition, there is correspondence from 11 Spruce Street from Ryan and Allison Slight. And speaker, we have with us here is the agent? Just the agent, okay. Oh, there are 2 other speakers. Okay, fine. Very good, okay. Okay, good morning. I'll ask the agent then to join us by stating your name.
Hello, my name is Mike Diola-Rivera. I'm the agent acting on behalf of 9 Spruce Street, and I'm with Replacement Design, located at 911 Davenport Road.
Good morning to you. Mike, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please proceed.
Certainly. So we are seeking relief to the bylaw to create a laneway suite. The variances we are seeking today are in line with similar approvals the committee has made in the past. Our clients have spoken to many of the neighbors in the neighborhood, collecting 20 letters of support, as you have mentioned. We have also been working quite closely with the city staff, such as Brian from Community Planning, to adjust the application to something they would be in support of. I'd also like to point out that because of this, there's been no objections from any city staff posted to our file, only the typical conditions for Heritage to review later on, and naming of the laneway suite and numbering, as is quite common with laneway suite applications. Upon designing the laneway suite, our client stressed to us that this is a property that will be multi-generational, and that the entire purpose of the laneway suite is to provide a space for their children and grandchildren to stay. Our client has no desire to rent this unit out to strangers, and at the moment, is meant to be a flex space that the family could essentially flip from house to laneway suite as their children's family grow and needs may change to head back to the main house. In terms of the setbacks, this is an area that's experiencing extensive growth, and our client's property is uniquely situated as it sits beside a laneway that is only used for their property and the businesses along Parliament. Many of the variances we are seeking here today we believe to be quite minor when you take into account the existing condition of the property and its surrounding buildings. The existing garage has similar setback issues as the proposed laneway suite, which has 0 side yard setback from the lane. This is a condition which we are simply hoping to continue with the new proposal. If we were to meet the requirements for the bylaw here and provide a 1.5 meter setback, given the location, this area would unfortunately be used by strangers accessing the lane to relieve themselves, as is often being done currently. We also have a letter of support from one of the businesses that uses the laneway, echoing our concerns in how the current garage setback is adequate and should be maintained. In order to keep the changes to the lot as minimal as possible, we decided to create the laneway suite in the same exact location as the garage. We are simply expanding about 4.5 feet beyond the depth of the current garage. This meant that no setback to the rear of the property and the side of the lane as is currently there from the garage. This was done due to the building along Parliament abutting onto the back of the property and the neighboring dwellings. If we were to have space between the suite and Parliament Street buildings, this would again simply only start to provide space for people to leave garbage and so on. Placing the building this close also allowed us to minimize any additional shadowing that may occur, as at our peak we are nearly 5 feet lower than that of the flat roof of the Parliament building behind us, as you can see on the proposed site plan that's currently displayed. We are simply asking for a height variance of 0.9 meters, which also serves to ensure that the 2 bedrooms in the basement that our client's grandchildren will be more than enough out of the ground to allow for means of egress through the windows that will not fully be buried, making it easier to crawl out in the event of an emergency. Although we have a variance to the angular plane and size of the dormer, this is one of the matters we worked quite closely with planning on. Through the discussions with planning, we made major changes to the dormer, flipping the entire second floor in order to provide more privacy to the neighbor and satisfy planning concerns while still providing the space needed for the second floor bedroom. In addition to this, we also made extensive changes to the rear yard between the home and laneway suite as per their request. I'd like to point out that our client again made significant efforts to reach out to all the neighbors in the area, knocking on each person's door to discuss, showing them copies of the plan, and leaving letters or emailing other neighbors to let them know what we were planning and to make sure they were aware. I'd like to open it up to any questions the panel members might have.
Hello, applicant.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Have you completed your presentation?
Yes. Open to any questions panel members might have.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that. Okay. I think first, before questions, we'll move along to listen to those who have registered to speak to the application. Moderator, are Allison and Ryan Slight with us? Okay, I'll ask Allison and Ryan Slight to join us, please, by stating your names.
Hi, Mr. Slight, you are unmuted. If your mic is muted on your end, please unmute it or raise your microphone volume.
Hello, can you hear me?
Now we hear you. Yes, is that?
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Ryan Slight, 11 Spruce, neighbor. I've submitted an objection to the general height of the building, the variance on the height. I just want to provide a little bit of color to the committee, just because I think this is not your sort of typical laneway house. Most of the time a laneway is something that runs behind houses, and there's a garage is adjacent, sort of butted up against each other, and that's not the case here. We do not have a garage, so and we've just finished renovating our backyard because we have to work in it. My wife and I are self-employed. We'll be working from home for the next year at least, probably 2, or who knows. And we've decided to build out a place in our yard to conduct our business and host meetings and so forth. This new construction is proposed to go to 0, which would then require us to some significant adjustments to our just recently renovated backyard and future working position. So to that, added, we go from sort of a modest garage to a 7 meter by 7 meter wall, which would deeply impact our lives while the construction is going on, and prevent us from conducting our business. We have a pretty good working relationship with our neighbors, and we hope to sort of work through some of these details, but the impact on us want to make sure the committee is aware of the context of this project. It's not your typical laneway situation. In addition to that, our recently planted gardens will probably struggle with this new wall blocking sun and so forth. So yeah, and then lastly, you know, we've taken this up with the neighbors. You know, again, we're in good working shape with them, but you know, nobody really presented any of these details to us until recently. So we've discussed that with them, and we're trying to work through some of these things. But as it stands right now, it's very imposing for us, and we were a little bit shocked by variances and the design. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have some questions for you, and my panel colleagues may have some as well. I'm looking at now just looking at that map that we just had up. If that could be put up again, that layout. So you're in number 11. You are directly next door, and I'm looking at your property on this. And does your property have any driveway access?
It does not.
It does not. Okay, so your backyard is kind of landlocked, and the proposed laneway suite would be adjacent to about half the length of your backyard would be right up against the laneway suite. How would you feel about this laneway suite? If it was built according to the city guidelines without any variances requested, what would the impact of that be upon you? Would the impacts be?
Again, you know, I know people doing laneway suites in Cabbagetown. They're not uncommon, but a lot of them are just built on a pad. Our neighbors would like to dig down and benefit from the basement. So if you were to see, and I probably should have submitted a photo of what our backyard looks like. You know, we have structures, including a pergola and fire pit and all kinds of utilities that run along that property line, which would, I mean, if you're going to build a basement to zero, that means we would have to destroy a lot of the stuff that we just paid a lot of money to have in order to run our business. So, you know, I know technically there is no variance to the build to zero on our property line, as there is a garage there now, somewhere close to that. But because we don't have a garage, you know, we're just going to inherit a 7 meter by 7 meter wall that didn't exist before, which during the construction, if it's built to zero, will obviously change everything about our recently renovated backyard, including, you know, landscaping and so forth. So, you know, height, you know, obviously we stand to object to the height. You know, the bigger the building, sort of the worse it is for us. But, you know, we do in principle accept that, you know, laneway houses are a good thing. But you know, we would have to come to terms with our neighbors who are reasonable about, you know, it having minimal impact on us. You know, we need a fence up. We need privacy, and you know, we can't have people digging in our backyard and removing, you know, some structures that are bolted down, and gas lines and electrical, and so forth.
Okay, those would be construction issues, and of course there is recourse that you could take with the city construction people. Those are not the purview of the Committee of Adjustment, but let me ask you, you mentioned that your neighbors are reasonable, but to what extent was there consultation with them? Did they seek consultation with you on this?
No, they did not. Yeah, which was, you know, they've apologized profusely for that. Well, we can say we'll chalk that up to some sort of oversight, but we were the last to find out. We got the drawings online and just made our submission, I think, by, was it August 20th or something. So, you know, that was a little bit of an issue, obviously, because we felt like this was trying to get forced through by gathering neighbor support, but skipping the important neighbor, which is the one that was the one deeply impacted. So, but, you know, we're going to, you know, try to bury that and try to find a way forward. But, you know, in the current state of the design, it's a big ask of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, any other questions for this speaker, the next door neighbor? Hearing none, thank you. Okay then. We'll move on. We have one more registered speaker. We'll ask that speaker to join us now by stating your name, please.
Rolston Avenue.
Okay, that's Simon?
That's correct, yes.
Simon, we missed you when you were stating your name. Would you mind saying it once again, please?
Sorry, Simon Van Duffelen.
Good morning to you.
16 Rolston Avenue.
Okay, very, very good. Simon, you have 5 minutes to present your views to the panel. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, panel members. My wife and I own not only 16 Rolston, but also 12 Rolston and also 15 Spruce, right in the vicinity of this property. In terms of consultation, nobody at any time consulted us or advised of the plans until we heard them from the slides at number 11. I'm astounded at the number of supporting letters. The properties that these emanate from are not in any significant way affected by this application, nor, to be honest, are our 3 properties. I'm here simply to speak in support of the objections from Mr. and Mrs. Slight, who are the only people who are significantly affected by the application, and I would urge the committee to reject the application. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Panel members, questions of this speaker, please. All right, then, thank you very much for those comments. We go back now to the applicant for rebuttal, and applicant will ask you to comment on what you've heard now. The main thing is from your next door neighbor, and he describes the impact of this wall right up against the lot line on his backyard, which does not have a driveway access or a lane behind it or anything. It's a landlocked backyard. Could you comment first of all on the consultation matter? We'd like to know about that, and also about his concerns concerning the wall on the lot line.
And through you, Mr. Chair, if the applicant can speak clearly into our mic, it was a little hard to hear you last time.
Yes, your presentation last time was getting a bit of disturbance, a bit of vibration or something. So, if you can think of any way to mitigate that, we'd appreciate it.
Certainly. Can you hear me okay right now, or is it still a little staticky?
It's still a bit muted, so speak slowly, please.
Okay. So, as Ryan had mentioned, our clients have had extensive conversations with them about the project, and have expressed to them that they are willing to change materials on the side to something that they would find more appealing facing their yard. Based on these discussions, we are also aware that one of their main concerns is the safety of their garden, which was recently done. Our clients are well aware of this fact and will be working closely with the contractor to ensure all work is done on their own property. As committee is well aware, it's not uncommon for additions or new properties to be built right up to the lot line through shoring to ensure minimal disturbance to neighboring properties. This is a common practice done throughout the city. There's many homes built right up against the property line, be it a home, laneway, suite, or garage. And as I mentioned before, our current garage is right up to the property line as is. The new laneway suite will only be about 4.5 feet deeper than the existing garage. So we're not talking about much of a change to that zero lot line setback that's there now. In terms of the outreach, from Simon, the owner of 1216 Ralston, 15 Spruce, we do have correspondence from our client that they emailed Simon on August 19th. So we do know that they reached out to them. Whether or not Simon responded back to that email, I'm not aware of any response back. So I'm not sure what may have happened there between the two of them, but we did reach out to them. And multiple clients of ours that live at 9 Spruce have reached out to the neighbors at 11 possible that they may not have reached out as early as a lot of these groups may have liked, but they did reach out to them before the deadline for submissions of comments. I believe the owner's letter at 11 Spruce was submitted on August 17th. I know they had extensive conversations since then. Even last week, they were talking about different things they could do to mitigate the concerns about the grass and new paving and landscaping work that's been done and what could be done to minimize any impacts on that. So our clients are well aware of the concerns, and they're trying to work as much as they can to mitigate any issues that might occur. And they'll continue to work towards that as the construction process draws near to get approval here today. I believe that covers most of the concerns that were mentioned. Open any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Panel members, questions? Mr. Solomon, go ahead.
I have a question about the side yard setback. Is there no requirement for a side yard setback on the east side?
No, there's been no required setback listed for the east side. It only applies to the west because of the way the lane.
Thank you.
Okay, then, so my question then is, on the east side where the impact is on number 11, on its backyard, it looks to me as if the wall will be basically on the lot line. Is my impression correct about that?
Yes, we're proposing a zero lot line. Obviously, if we're doing shoring, there might be a few inches lost there, but the purpose was to get up to the lot line.
My next question to you is, how would it impact your proposal if you were building your laneway suite within the guidelines of the City of Toronto? In other words, if there were no variances associated with it, how would that impact your proposal?
So really the variances we're talking about here are the setbacks to the laneway side and overall height. We mitigated most of the other variances in terms of landscaping area. As you can see from our proposed site plan, most of the backyard is soft landscaping. There's just a bit of space lost to the porch steps coming down, bicycle parking and such. The setback, the 1.5 or 2.5% the lane as outlined in our variances, it would affect the interior areas. It obviously would shrink our bedrooms and overall space. And as I mentioned, it would just provide more area to the laneway side that isn't necessarily going to be soft landscaping. It's going to turn into an area for garbage refuse. And, you know, any of these lanes that are closer to downtown often get filled with garbage. People use it to relieve themselves. They sleep in the lanes. Having this kind of setback is really just going to make things worse for the lane itself, because the only property that, like I said, goes onto this lane is our client at 9 Spruce. The rest is the buildings along Parliament. So in terms of eyes on the laneway, it's really just 9 Spruce that can kind of keep an eye on it and make sure that, you know, stuff is staying clean and people aren't really going in and out. So it's hard to keep that area clean if we were to stick to that setback.
My concern is really more with respect to number 11 and their enjoyment of their backyard. Let me ask you about variance number 1. Variance number 1, if you were complying there with the bylaw and maintaining that minimum of 85% soft landscaping, how would that impact the length of your laneway suite? Would there be an impact on its length?
Well, based on the revisions we've done with planning, we're actually in compliance as it's shown now. But the reason we kept this variance is because part of the comments from development is the need for garbage refuge. So if we add this garbage refuge area back in, that would put us back to the same number that we're asking for. So with
I'm sorry for you. Just so you know, your transmission is somewhat, it's a little disturbed, a little distorted. So I'm going to ask you to. That answer is important to me. To repeat that answer, please, and go very slowly so that I can hear you through the disturbance.
Can I just offer some advice? Maybe you can move your mic closer, or it sounds like you're talking through a speaker. The mic's really far away, so if you can get yourself off speaker, or bring your mic closer.
Yeah, I'm using a headset, so I think it might just be an issue with the headset itself, but hopefully if I talk a little slower here, you can understand me. The rear yard area right now, we've done the revisions to satisfy planning, but we still have this variance listed because we need that space to allow for the garbage refuge from the comments that development
Slow down.
submitted.
Pardon me. I'm sorry. You need that space to allow.
For the garbage area that development has requested in their report, be added.
And
So that
the-
we have an area for bins and
Okay. And the garbage area is hard surface rather than soft landscaping.
correct.
But your actual length of the laneway suite would not be reduced.
Well, we actually comply with the separation from the home to the laneway suite. We're actually well beyond the 7.5 meters.
Okay, thank you. All right. Panel members, any further questions for the applicant? Mr. Salomon, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. By providing a basement, I mean, in the laneway suite, that's the first laneway suite I've seen that has a basement, but is that raising the height of the building that's requiring an increase in the height for the variance? Because you're increasing the height by 0.9 meters, about 3 feet from what the current zoning allows.
Yes, so with the basement, the idea was to try and get those windows as close to the grade as we could without going too much beyond the overall height here. So right now, our windows are partially above grade to, as I mentioned before, make it easier for egress for anyone using that basement. So the closer those windows are to grade, the safer it'll be for anyone to crawl out in the case of fire or any other emergency. So it was really a safety concern that we had, that we tried to mitigate the height variance while still providing something that would make our clients feel safer.
Okay, Ms. Hayes.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation with respect to the basement. I noticed that the main floor is 9 feet and the second floor is 8.6 feet. Is there a reason that that's necessary, and could those be reduced to lessen the height and impact? And also with respect to the dormer, I appreciate the comments that you made that in your discussions with planning, you moved the dormer to the west side of the building versus the east side of the building, but it is still quite oversized. Can you just give me some of your comments with respect to that, please?
Certainly. So I've just sent a message to the owners to see for sure whether or not there's anything we can do to kind of mitigate those heights that you had mentioned. But in the meantime, the dormer is as wide as it was to provide adequate space on the second floor with proper headrooms. As you can imagine, having to have the slope here to have that 4.5 meters of height and the angle goes kind of makes the space a little bit harder to walk around in. By the time you put a bed in the middle of that master bedroom area with the dormer the way we have it, if we were to stick to a dormer that was say 30% or less, you wouldn't really have much room to navigate around the bed itself. Still waiting for a response for the plans, but I believe they would be open to lowering the height if required from the 8.5 on the second to 8 feet, and perhaps lower it by a foot on the first floor as well. But response back from that.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, question?
Thank you. To the applicant, I know you mentioned it before, but the buildings that front onto Parliament that are immediately south of your laneway suite, abuts. How much taller is that than the proposed building?
So they're actually 5 feet taller than our proposed laneway suite.
Okay, and that's the whole way back to their
correct.
east? Okay, thanks.
Very good. Okay, if there are no further questions for the applicant, then panel can take the application into committee for discussion. Who would like to begin? Well then, perhaps, Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to start with some points. This is a very kind of specific situation, I think, right? Because of the nature of the block that it's on. It's a tightly packed block on each side. And I think one of the main contributing factors are these buildings on Parliament that come the whole way back. I think that the thing that I'm trying to get my head around is the impact that the proposal will have over and above what would have been permitted as of right. And on first read of the variance requests, I was thinking that it's maybe too much. We're looking at almost every aspect that is pushing a variance. But I think given the specific location right behind Parliament and the existing context of the existing garage, and the fact that planning is in support or not an objection, I think that this is a supportable application. I think that the fact that it does have the 7.5 meter separation from the main building and is over almost a meter in height, that's pushing it, but I'd be willing to support this.
Thank you. Next. Mr. Salomon.
So I did get a better appreciation of the issues once the neighbor was speaking and explained exactly what's going on in the rear yard. I mean, normally we get a laneway suite where the lane runs along the backyards of most of the houses along there, and so every other adjacent neighbor has then a garage in their backyard. But the neighbor in this case does not have a lane behind them, and they don't have a garage in their backyard, and so the rear yard is an outdoor rear yard. And so I do feel that there are significant impacts to the abutting neighbor, both in terms of the expansion of the size from the existing garage to a larger 2-story laneway suite, and the increase in height of 0.9 meters, 3 feet in height with a larger footprint. I think that really impinges on the privacy and enjoyment of the neighbor's backyard.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes.
It's unfortunate we haven't been able to hear back with respect to the height issue. I echo some of Mr. Reed's observations with respect to there is no variance for separation distance between the existing house and the proposed laneway suite. My main concern with respect to impact was the height. The dormer being on the other side, I don't think there's an overlook concern. I'm not really concerned about the small penetration of the angular plane. But I have, given the site context, I have a little concern with respect to the differing impact and a variance of about 3 feet over what is permitted under height. So that's my initial observation. It is really the height that's causing me a little bit of a concern, and I would have liked to have heard back on whether or not there was any opportunity to adjust, but
I don't think, perhaps we could ask the applicant's if we could come out for a committee for a minute and see whether or not the applicant's agent has heard anything back on the height issue.
Yes, we can do that. And so we'll go out of committee now for a moment. We'll return to the applicant, who I'm hoping is standing by, very good, and ask the applicant for any update he can give us with respect to the height issue, which there is concern about. Applicant.
Yes. Yes, I have heard back. Our clients are willing to go down from 8.5 feet on the second floor to 8 feet, and also bring down the first floor from 9 feet to 8 feet as well. So that's a reduction of 1.5 feet from the overall height. That brings us down by 0.45 meters. So that would have us with a variance of 6.45 meters instead of 6.9.
Okay, the question then is whether or not we can reflect those changes, which I think some panel members would find welcome, in the application. I'm going to turn to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer for guidance here. Do we have any way of reflecting those at this moment, or would we need to have the application deferred to have it rewritten?
You can impose a condition restricting the height to 6.45 at this point.
Could you repeat that, please?
You can impose a condition to restrict the height to, I think I heard 6.45 meters. The applicant can't amend the application at this point. You're in committee.
Okay, so we can't amend, but we could impose it. We could approve, but as a condition to restrict the height to 6.45 meters.
I believe that was the number the agent spoke to.
We'll just go back to the agent. Agent, was 6.45 the height?
That's correct, yes.
6.45 meters.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go back to panel now. And panel, we'll go back into committee. The Deputy Secretary Treasurer has confirmed that we could approach this application by adding a condition to it to reflect what the applicant has just conveyed to us, that the height would be restricted to 6.45 meters as a condition to dealing with this application as it stands now. Any thoughts on that? Ms. Hayes.
On the basis of that submission and furthering my other comments, I could be in support of the application with that condition.
Okay, and coming around now to my comments, with that condition, I would also be able to be in support. I was concerned previously that that the application was really asking for building over the bylaw in several dimensions that was not desirable. But now with 11 Spruce Street in mind, I think that condition would generally satisfy my concerns. Therefore, I'll come back to panel now and wonder, is anyone ready with a motion on this application, please? Mr. Reed.
I'm happy to bring forward a motion for approval for the reasons that I stated before. I think this is, the variances being requested are minor. Subject to the development engineering conditions of March 11th, and subject to a condition that the height of the laneway suite be a maximum of 6.45 meters.
Okay. Motion from Mr. Reed. Is that a second from Ms. Hayes? Ms. Hayes is seconding. Okay. It is moved and seconded to approve the application subject to a condition that the height be restricted to 6.45 meters. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion does receive unanimous support. The application is so approved. Thank you, panel. And we move along to number 7, 574 Davenport Road. On this application, we're dealing with applicant's materials. There's a cover letter from the agent. There are presentation materials from the agent. There is a commenting report from Urban Forestry. In fact, 2. And there is correspondence from Transportation Services. Plus, we have a staff report from Urban Forestry dated 25 August. And just to check with the moderator, we have here the agent, and is a registered speaker, Naomi Ben David, is she in support or opposition, do we know?
I'm not sure here. We don't know. Also, I would like to note that there is an additional speaker registered as joint speakers, Janet Kozak and Patrick Besco, as interested parties.
They are now registered.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, do we know whether they're in opposition?
They are in interest.
Interest, okay. Okay then, I think we'll need a presentation then in this case, so let's go. We'll ask the agent to join us by stating your name, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Christian Chan of C2 Planning. We are the planning consultants for the owner, 574 Davenport Limited.
Good morning to you. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please proceed.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. So our client is seeking relief from the 9 variances to construct a 3-story detached fourplex with a roof deck. So this proposal will contribute to the city's missing middle housing supply. We've discussed the proposal with community planning, Ms. Catherine Young, and we've made some changes to the original proposal with regards to landscaping and parking spaces. Subject to those revisions, Ms. Young and Transportation Services have noted no objections to the proposal that is now before the committee. We understand the proposal will be subject to review by Urban Forestry and Ravine Natural Feature Protection, of which the conditions are recommended by those departments. So the cumulative gross floor area will be 377.63 meters squared with an FSI of 1.2 times the lot area. There are 2 second-story balconies in the front and rear of the building. These are many spaces for the occupants in the 3rd unit. Third-story balcony will be at the rear of the building, and the rooftop terrace will be an amenity space for the occupants of the 4th unit. I'd just like to note that the existing building has rear yard decks already, as provided for in the visual document book that is provided, the presentation materials. So the proposed floor areas range from 86 meters squared to 132 meters squared. So in terms of the site context, it's a corner lot at the northwest corner of Davenport and Walmer Road. It's located also in Special Policy Area 264. This is a specific policy that describes that development south of the escarpment, the Lake Iroquois escarpment, has to have a built form and scale that is moderate and maintains views of the escarpment in Casa Loma, so these are not impinged. The immediate context is characterized by a mix of detached, semi-detached duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Immediately to the west of the subject site in 576, I note that there is a 4-unit building right next door. There's apartment buildings in the immediate context at 640. The heights range from 2 to 6 stories. Parking is generally provided in the front yard, as is proposed here. Now, getting into the planning justification for the variances with respect to the main wall heights. The zoning bylaw permits 12-meter maximum heights, and the proposed overall height of the building is 1.81 or 6 feet below the maximum permitted height for a fourplex. With regards to the depth of the fourplex, the fourplex will have the same depth and length as the existing building on the lot if you go to the site plan, A300. In fact, we can see here that the depth is a little less the building length, and we're just proposing to expand to the east, to the corner With regard to the floor space index, the above grade floor space is going to be 1.2 times the area of the lot. It's appropriate in the geographic neighborhoods. I note that properties south of Davenport Road, along Walmer Road, are permitted to have an FSI of 2.0 for their missing middle townhouse build form. So the rear yard setback, it will be located 6.57 meters from the rear lot line. So this is going to have the same rear yard setback as the existing building. If we measure from the center point of the rear lot line, we have a 7.62 meters or 25-foot rear yard setback. If we have the largest portion of the setback, it will be 8.35 meters, and this is obviously resulting from the parallelogram-shaped lot. With regards to the parking variance, the lot currently has access to the parking spaces for Davenport Road, and the proposed parking access will remain the same as it exists now. All the buildings in the immediate context fronting onto the north side of Davenport have front yard parking or driveway access onto Davenport Road. So, and just to speak to Transportation Services, they've clarified that they do not have any concerns with the proposed parking configuration and space arrangements on the site. With regards to the platform, there are going to be no minor impacts from the balconies at the rear. The building on the property to the north of the site at 5 Austin Terrace is 30 meters distant and on top of the escarpment. There are no impacts to the public realm in terms of overlook onto Walmer Road to the east, and the platforms comply with the platform setback requirements to the west, so there aren't any variances for any sort of western impacts from above grade platforms. With regards to landscaping, all hardscape areas are proposed to be paved permeable pavers as requested by community planning. And with regards to the parking space variance number 9, the last variance, the site is well serviced by the TTC with bus route 127. It's a 5-minute walk from the TTC DuPont subway, and community planning and transportation services have also not objected to the deficiency in the parking spaces that are proposed on the site. So if you'd like me to go into the 4 tests in my summary opinion, the proposal.
I'd like you to make your final comments now, please.
Great. Pursuant to any approvals, I'd just like to reiterate that there's the urban forestry and natural features protection conditions that are required for the approval, and also a condition requested that newly constructed paving in the front yard is to consist of permeable paving pursuant to our discussions with community planning staff.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go on to the registered speakers. Who will be first, moderator?
It would be Naomi, sorry.
Okay, Naomi, we'll ask you to join the meeting, please, by stating your name.
Good morning, committee. This is actually Damien Hornich, Naomi Ben David's husband. She had to take her kids away. To the extent that I may be permitted to act as her agent, just to convey a few very brief comments, I'd be happy to do so.
So you'll be speaking on behalf of Naomi. Okay, go ahead. She is the registered speaker, but please carry on.
Yes, I'm her spouse, and we are co-owners of 584 Davenport. Our comments are very brief. We just wanted to convey our support for the application.
Thank you very much. You're conveying support. Okay. Very good. Let's move on then to Janet and Patrick. And we'll ask them to join the meeting, please, by stating their names.
Hi, Janet or Patrick. You are unmuted on our end. If you can unmute yourself on your end, raise your microphone volume or plug it in so we can hear you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can try giving him a call.
Let's do that, please. And I'll just,
Hi, you're unmuted.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much for hearing our, I'm sorry, my microphone, I don't understand how it works. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you quite clearly. Please state your name.
My name is Sister Janet Kozak, and I'm with another sister, Sister Patricia Besco, not Patrick, for the record. And we are the residents owners of 5 Austin Terrace, north of the property in question.
Yes?
Just let me turn down my volume. I just wanted, first of all, to say that we are in support of the proposition. We're not in opposition. Secondly, we just wanted to bring it to the attention that if maybe they know their stuff, but the property line between 5 Austin Terrace and the property in question it's in the retaining wall. It's in the middle of the retaining wall, and we just wanted to make sure that in the construction that the maintenance and the protection of that wall, it is a part of the encroachment agreement from 1973 that it is the responsibility of the Davenport owners. So we just wanted to make that clear that we just want to know that that we're not in opposition and that they have to watch that wall and the requirements of distance between access to that wall and that there's nothing encroaching on that wall. And that's all we wanted to comment on.
Okay, sister.
That's it.
Sister, thank you for that. So you are in support, but you're reminding the applicant of your understanding of the agreement regarding the retaining wall. Let's go back. Okay, then thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
We'll go back now. We'll go back now to the applicant. And applicant, we didn't actually have speakers here in opposition, so there is really no need for you to rebut. I can pass along a message to you from Sister Janet with respect to the retaining wall and an agreement that apparently exists, which is beyond the purview of the committee and this particular application. Do you, applicant, have any final comments on the application to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the residents for their support, and the retaining wall is a matter that is being discussed with Rebuttal Natural Feature Protection because it is under their purview. And to comment on that, because the retaining wall is in fact protecting that natural feature and property and safety which pertaining to our particular property. So it's definitely something that I have noted down, and we can continue a discussion with RN PF as well as 5 Austin Terrace and keep them informed of what's proceeding with that. But we're not proposing any alterations to that retaining wall.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel members, questions, Mr. Solomon.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I think in your presentation you mentioned in terms of the driveway that you were in agreement with that if this was to be approved, that there be a condition that the driveway be of permeable material.
Yes, sir, that is correct. Currently it is concrete, and through our discussions with both transportation and community planning, they requested that all proposed hardscape areas would be provided with permeable paving.
Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
Thank you. And just checking of the applicant that you're aware of and in agreement with the transportation condition of restoring the driveway on Walmer?
Yes, that is part of the proposal. In fact, in the revisions that were submitted to the Committee of Adjustment reflects that on site plan A300.
Very good. At this point, we can take the application into committee for a motion. And I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Um, I thank the applicant for the submissions. They made things very clear. I think that this is actually a very a good development for that corner lot, and you know, creating more housing units is a good thing. The depth and length are the same as the current building, so there's no additional impact there. I think it meets the 4 tests. I think it's appropriate, subject to transportation conditions, including permeable pavers and forestry condition number 1. That would be my motion if my colleagues have no further comments.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? There is. Mr. Reed seconds that motion. So moved and seconded to approve the application subject to transportation and forestry. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is approved unanimously, and the application is so approved. Thank you. At this stage, panel is going to recess for about 11 minutes until noon, and this will resume at noon. Now in recess. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification on the condition with regards to transportation. Is it just the condition requiring the driveway from Davenport to be with eco pavers, or you're also including the closure and restoring the curb from Walmer Road?
Both.
Both, thank you.
Very good. We'll go into a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
Bruce, we don't hear you.
We'll now resume with item number 8, 79 Lyell Avenue. And we'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi, my name is Joe Dome, 1101 Steeles Avenue West, agent for the owner.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Okay, panel members, do we need a presentation here, or would you like to go straight to questions? Don't appear to be any questions. In that case, I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Mr. Salomon.
Yeah, I'll move a motion to approve the variance. There is only one, and I believe it is minor in nature, so that's my motion to approve, subject to urban forestry condition number 1.
Thank you very much. And I should have said the materials we have before us are simply those submitted by the applicant plus a staff report from Urban Forestry. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. Those in favor? The motion is carried and the application is approved, subject to forestry. Thank you very much. And panel moves along to number 10, number 9 having been deferred. Number 10 is for 77 Sullivan Street. And on 77 Sullivan, we'll ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Get your project moving, we need to focus on.
Hi, Mr. Reiner. You are going to be unmuted if you can address the committee.
Business contractor.
Right.
Mr. Reiner, are you there?
Yeah, I think it's a matter for someone else to do it.
Mr. Chair, I can try giving him a call. It seems like he's unable to hear us.
I think you better do that, please.
Mr. Hoyer, if you're there, we're trying to give you a call. We're trying to have you address the committee. If you can please answer us.
Yeah. Oh no, I know it's not easy.
At this time. Please hold while I try to...
Through you, Mr. Chair, it seems we're having troubles reaching him. Do you want to hold this item while I email him?
I think we'll do that, yes. So we're having a little trouble connecting with the agent for number 10. We're going to hold that item, continuing to try to make contact, and move along to item number 11, 3 Rose Park Crescent. On this application, the committee has before it applicant's materials. There's a cover letter from the agent dating to March 23rd, and there are 2 form letters in support, signed by the owner-occupants of number 1 and number 5 Rose Park, both sides of the subject property. Good, so we'll ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay, thank you. My name is Hector Portalance. I'm the owner's representative for 3 Rose Park Crescent.
Thank you very much. Hector, just let me confer with my colleagues to see whether we have questions for you. So, any questions for the applicant? No? In that case, I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm happy to bring a motion for approval. I think this is a very minor application with no negative impacts resulting from the variances being requested. I'd also note that the small note attached to the file from the applicant about identifying why it's not possible to comply, that little bit of extra information was helpful in my reading of this and helped to justify why these were appropriate variances. So I move to approve this application with no conditions.
That's seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion is carried with a unanimous vote, and the application is approved. Thank you. And with that, panel moves along to item number 12. 107 Hampton Avenue. And on 107 Hampton, panel has before us applicant's materials, covering letter from the agent, renderings, and shadow studies submitted by the agent. There's a report from Urban Forestry. There is correspondence in support from 125 Wolfrey Avenue and 114 Wolfrey. There's opposition, correspondence from 96 Hogarth Avenue, and also from 105 Hampton Avenue. Plus, there is recently received correspondence. Oh, here's from 105 Hampton. And this letter was misidentified as correspondence in opposition in the agenda package. So at this stage, moderator, it looks to me as though we just have the agent with us and the owner, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, then we'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi there, my name is Maria Denegri. I'm with Denegri Best Studio.
Hi, Maria. If you could just speak up or increase your microphone volume so we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Much better, thanks.
Okay, great.
Very good. Okay, Maria, stand by for a moment and we'll ask the panel whether they have any questions for you or would like to have a presentation. Panel?
Sure.
Question from Mr. Salomon. Go ahead.
My question relates to the third floor roof terrace. And is there any privacy screening on, I think it's the north and south side?
On the north side, we are a corner residence, and so we would be, we're essentially adjacent to Wolfrey Avenue. If it's necessary to put screening on the north side, by all means, we would definitely be providing some screening on the south side.
Thank you.
Okay, and just to point out once again, that we did receive correspondence from your next door neighbor at 105 Hampton, which was originally misidentified as
Yes,
correspondence in
if I-
opposition. But in
Right,
fact,
if I
it's,
could just,
in fact, it appears to be correspondence in support.
Yeah, if I could just clarify, my clients did meet with their next door neighbors. They spoke about the renovation at length. The neighbors are in support. I think what they were expressing concern on in their letter was that the house had been misidentified as a detached house, and we are in fact a semi-detached. So they just wanted to make sure that the variances that are being granted are not being granted with a mislabeled home, which is not the case.
Right, the property is a semi.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Very good. Any further questions for the applicant, panel? If not, we can move to a motion. Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks. I move for approval of this application subject to urban forestry condition 1. I think it's a very sensitive design and really has no negative impacts on the neighbors. I think it's a smart way to get additional density on the site. And I would like to give some congratulations to the applicant. I think the package was really helpful in terms of having the existing photos and the proposed design really clearly displayed in the package. That was really good. So move approval subject to urban forestry.
And that is seconded by Ms. Hayes. It is moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote. The motion is carried and the application is approved, subject to urban forestry. Thank you. Panel moves on. I'll just check back. Have you been able to raise applicant? No, not yet. Okay, so we'll move on to number 13, 250 Front Street West. And on this application, the committee has before it material submitted by the applicant, plus a cover letter from the agent received on April the 8th. So we'll ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to note that there was a speaker in interest, Matthew Cornell. I'm not sure if he was speaking or if he was listening in. He's no longer on the line. I can try to get a hold of him too, in case.
He was on the line and no longer is? Let's take a moment and try to get a hold of him, please.
Calling to speak to our receptionist.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it seems like we're not able to reach him. It's going to voicemail or his reception, automated
Thank you for
voicemail.
trying. Okay. So we will go ahead with number 13 now, based simply on having the agent with us. So agent, please join us by stating your name.
Hello, it's Michael Foderick speaking. I'm a lawyer from McCarthy Tetro, and so I act for the owner of 250 Front Street West, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, otherwise known as the CBC. This property, I think, is well known as the CBC's headquarters. The purpose of this application, it's a bit quirky. I'm prepared to explain it. It boils down to, we're just
Michael?
trying to make the...
Michael?
Pardon me, yes?
Just a moment, please. I'm just going to confer with my panel colleagues and ask them whether they require a presentation or whether they would prefer to go straight to questions to you. So, panel members, do we need a presentation with respect to this application? No, we don't appear to. Are there any questions for the agent on this application? And again, there are no questions apparently. So, that being the case, we can actually take the, unless there's anything, agent, which you feel is important to convey to the panel, we can take this application into committee now. Do you have anything you wish to say?
Well, I hope the cover letter was thorough and self-explanatory. I just want to say that this is a one-of-a-kind sort of variance because we have a very old site-specific bylaw that regulates the user, not the use. And so even for the modest internal reorganization of the building, again, no exterior renovations of any kind proposed, not in any way touching what's fundamentally going on there. A variance like this is unfortunately necessary. It's consistent with past minor variances that have been issued by the committee that passed, and I just really would be irresponsible. I didn't mention a specific example of why we're here, just to make it very clear. And again, I'm prepared to go into the floor test if there's a desire by the committee to do so. Other than to say that, you know, we have I'll use an example, a studio space which has been used by the CBC for many years for film production and whatnot, and then, you know, changing needs and whatnot, we don't have need for that space. The bylaw as written now prevents us from using it for anything else. So it sits vacant and it's a waste of space, and so we want to, and we have in some limited cases, you know, leased it out to the likes of Mirvish or Cirque du Soleil or those sorts of folks. It creates revenue for us. It's fantastic space for them. Anyway, the bylaw is a very quirky one, and it's very restrictive, and the variances we're proposing allow us more flexibility within the space to allow things like that to happen, again, without, as you'll think, you see by our cover letter, fundamentally changing what's going on the site. Again, I won't belabor it by going through the 4 tests.
No,
other than to say I think it is minor, and be grateful for your support.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. With that, we shall take the application into committee for consideration. And panel, I think I'll look to Mr. Salomon. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a very straightforward variance. No new GFAs proposed. It's simply to permit additional uses to use the space that's not being used by the CBC. So I think it's minor in nature. I'm going to move approval of the variance.
Thank you very much. And there is a second, Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to approve the application. Those in favor, show of hands. The vote is unanimous and the application is so approved. Thank you. And panel moves along to item number 14. 114 Ava Road. And on this application, the panel has before it applicant's materials. We have email correspondence from Transportation Services, and there are 7 form letters in support, signed by owners and occupants of 108, 116, 117, 124, 126, Ava, and also from 111 and 115 Dewborn Avenue. So I shall ask the agent, please, to join us by stating your name.
Like to speak. Hi there. Can you hear me now?
We do hear you. State your name, please.
Drew Laszlo, agent for the owner. And I would like to speak briefly, if I may, when the appropriate time comes.
Very good. The appropriate time is now. Please convey what you'd like to convey.
I would aiming at modifying two variances or potentially putting the changes on as a condition to any potential approval. Specifically related to variances number 2 and 5, I actually would like to increase the proposed side yard setback to 0.9 meters for both those. We were asking for 0.6 meters or 2 feet from the side yard. We want to increase that to 3 feet or 0.9 meters.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you, Mr. Laszlo, there. Let's go through these very closely then. So the first variance you would like to modify is which number?
Number 2, please.
Number 2. And you're going to now reads the proposed rear deck will be located 0.6 meters from the west.
0.9.
0.9. And the next variance you'd like to modify is?
Variance number 5. Please.
Number 5. And it will read the same way, 0.9.
Correct.
Okay, because you've increased those, it shouldn't be a problem to consider. Madam W, no. Okay, so we can consider those revisions. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Hi, applicant. If you can unmute yourself to answer that question. If you'd like to add anything else.
Yes, I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
We hear you again now, yes. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, panel members. Go ahead, Mr. Salomon.
I just had a question for the applicant. If this was considered to be approved, would they have any problem with tying approval to a condition that it be tied to the site plan, which shows the existing driveway situation in terms of what is asphalt covered and what is covered by permeable pavers?
That would be fine.
But the site plan is not going to reflect the 0.09 revision to those two variances that Mr. Laszlo has just made. That's my concern. Madam Deputy Secretary?
Perhaps if there was a condition, the condition would apply strictly to the existing driveway.
That could be done as long as it's scoped to just that element, if the committee wishes to do that.
That would be a better way forward. Okay, then, is anyone ready to move? Mr. Salomon, did you get the gist of that?
So, were there any other speakers? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, there's a speaker, Laura Sloan, in support.
In support?
Yes.
Okay, and that's not the owner, right?
I don't believe so. It says support.
Okay, I guess that at this stage we should go to hear that speaker. Let us do that now. And so Laura Sloan and Jeff Berman, please join us by stating your names.
Hi, Laura. You are unmuted on our end. If you are muted on your end, please unmute your microphone or increase your microphone volume or plug it in so we can hear you. Mr. Chair, I can try giving them a call. It seems we can't hear them.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you. Could you state your name, please?
Laura Sloan.
Good afternoon. Laura, I understand you'd like to address the committee. This is your opportunity. Please proceed.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I fully support the development, and now that Mr. Laszlo has increased the setback to 3 feet, we have no issues.
Thank you very much. That's good information actually for the panel to have. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, then back to the panel. Panel members, is anyone ready with the motion? Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. I appreciate the amendments being proposed by the applicant to improve the conditions with respect to the side yard setback as it's a new build. I appreciate that they are trying to more closely comply with the zoning. I believe this application is indeed minor. I agree with the comments of the Transportation Department in their email of April 26th with respect to the replacement of the asphalt with permeable pavers. And I would be prepared to make a motion to approve the application as amended with the condition that the existing asphalt be replaced by permeable pavers.
Thank you. Second to that motion, there is. Mr. Solomon seconds. So it is moved and seconded to approve as amended by the applicant this morning and subject to a requirement for permeable pavers. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion is carried by a unanimous vote and so approved. Thank you. And with that, panel moves to number 15, 24 Ellis Park Road. On 24 Ellis Park, we have before us the following: applicant's materials, an arborist report from Cohen and Master Tree and Shrub Services, plus a tree protection plan from the same company. There is email correspondence from Engineering and Construction, from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, from Transportation Services, plus a staff report from TRCA. And just received today, there are 5 form letters in support, signed by the owners and occupants of 22, 31, 32, 34, and 38 Ellis Park. So I shall ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Domingos, architect. I'm representing the owners at 24 Ellis Park Road.
Thank you very much. Okay. Panel members, would we like Mr. Domingos to give us a presentation, or are there any questions for him? Hearing none, then I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe this is indeed minor. Transportation, Ravine, and I'm not TRCA, have no comments. I think what's being requested in terms of driveway width, it is indeed a minor addition to what the bylaw proposes, and I would like to move a motion to approve the application, no conditions.
Thank you. Second to that motion? There is, Mr. Reed. It is moved and seconded to approve without condition. All those in favor? And the motion is carried unanimously. The application is approved. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just want to point out that Mr. Hoyer from item number 10, the agent, seems to be on the line now.
He's now with us. Yeah. Very good. So at this stage, we shall backtrack slightly to number 10. And we now have Mr. Hoyer with us.
Can you hear me?
We do hear you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about before, I could not hear you.
Okay, we knew there was some difficulty there, but thanks for sticking with it. Okay, going back now to application number 10. This is for 77 Sullivan Street. We've got the applicant's materials before us. We have two form letters that support the application from 75 and 79 Sullivan, which both sides of the subject property. And there is, in opposition, correspondence from Stephen Chu of Phoebe Street. So, moderator, just to check with you, the only person registered to speak here is the applicant, correct? Okay. Very good. Okay. Very good then. So, panel members, any questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm just looking at that letter that came in opposition, and its concern seems to be with construction issues, blockage of the roadway by construction vehicles and so on. So not the purview of the Committee of Adjustment. So therefore, I look to panel members for a motion, please. Mr. Reed.
I'm happy to bring a motion for approval. This project is just requesting a variance in FSI, and I think the fact that there are no variances being requested for length or setbacks on side yards or height show that the applicant has made some efforts to reduce any impacts that could come from a redevelopment of this site. So I move to approve with no conditions.
Second to that motion? Ms. Hayes, second. So it is moved and seconded to approve without condition. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion carried. Application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for sticking with us, applicant. Okay. And we jump forward once again back to number 16. On number 16, 246 O'Connor Drive, we have before us just those materials submitted by the applicant. So we'll ask the applicant to join us now by stating your name.
My name is Nick Hatziantonio. I'm the agent for the owners at 246 O'Connor Drive.
Good afternoon, Nick. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Panel members, any questions for the agent? Don't appear to be any. If that's the case, let's see if we can move to a motion, please. Mr. Salomon.
So there are 4 variances that are being requested. I believe they are minor in nature, and I would move approval of the variances with no conditions.
Thank you for that. Second? Second is by Ms. Hayes. It is moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. Motion is carried by unanimous vote. The application is approved. Which takes us to item number 17. 1 Thorncliffe Avenue. Now, on this application, we have the applicant's materials and support correspondence from the following addresses: 4 Thorncliffe Ave, 24 Chester Hill, 6 Thorncliffe Ave, 157 Cambridge Ave, 70 Eastmount, 20 Chester Hill, 38 Thorncliffe Ave, and 33 Chester Hill. I'll ask the applicant then to join us by stating your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the application.
Thank you very much. Panel, with respect to this application, presentation, questions for the applicant? Hearing none, then I would look to panel members for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. When you first look at the application, you're struck by the variances, but when you look at the lot configuration and the unique elements that exist on the lot, what is being proposed, I believe, is totally reasonable. The impact is negligible, and I believe it meets the 4 tests under the Act, and I would be in support of the application with no conditions.
Second to that motion? Yes, there is. Mr. Reed, seconds. So it is moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is approved by a unanimous vote. The application is approved. Thank you. We move on to number 18, which is 3 Coleridge Avenue. And on 3 Coleridge, we have before us applicant's materials, a staff report from Urban Forestry. We have form letters in support from 1 Coleridge, 534 Strathmore, and 112 Oak Crest Avenue. Plus, we have recently received materials from, which consist of 9 photographs of addresses on Coleridge Ave, and also 1053 to 1051 Woodbine. And there are also previous Committee of Adjustment decisions from 2017, 2008, 2019, 2011, 2015, 17, and 14, which affect various other properties, relate to other properties on Coleridge Avenue. Those were received on the 27th of August. So, let's have the speaker join us. I'll ask the speaker to join us by stating your name.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Leo Mastandre. I'm the agent for the owners at 3 Coleridge.
Thank you very much, Leo. Good afternoon. Let me check with panel members. Panel, on this application, would you like a presentation? Do you have any questions to put to the agent? I'm not hearing any.
Just through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that this is a permission. I believe the materials in the package that was given to members has the permission actually at the end of the notice. It's actually should be at the top, and it's to for the enlargement of the existing semi-detached dwelling that's in the RD zone. So it's an expansion of the lawful non-conforming use.
Very good. Panel members,
Unknown caller.
panel members, so those comments from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. This is a permission which is at the end, which should have been at the front of of the application materials. Okay then, so we don't have any requests for a presentation or questions for the applicant. I'll look to the panel then for a motion. Mr. Salomon, go ahead.
Yep, so there are 5 variances that are requested, and I do believe that they are minor in nature, and so I would move approval of the requested variances subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. Second on that. It is seconded, Mr. Reed. So it is moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is carried. The application is approved, subject to urban forestry. And we move on to number 19, 796 through 802, Broadview Ave. Here we are dealing with applicant's materials, agent's cover letter, email correspondence from City Planning, Heritage Preservation, Transportation Services, staff report from Engineering and Construction. Also, there is a City Council decision to permit an application for minor variances with respect to the property known as 796 to 802 Broadview, which was received on the 26th of April. Okay. And we do, moderator, do we have speakers in interest or opposition here?
Apart from the 2 agents listed, we have 1 person in interest, Dinah Ellis.
Okay. Well then, let's have the agent join us by stating your name, please.
Certainly, Michael Testaguza from the Bigley Area Group. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to make your presentation to the panel, and you have 5 minutes if you need it. Please begin now.
Certainly, will do. And I'll try to keep it brief, and if members of the panel have any questions or the resident in interest has anything more specific to deal with, we'll try to dive into those matters in a little bit more detail. So as mentioned, the properties are at 796 to 802 Broadview. The proposals have received zoning approval already and are at notice of approval condition point from a site plan perspective. There was a change in the direction on ownership on this site, and so minor requested revisions have come through the Committee of Adjustment. Now, the council direction was to allow for this application to come forward within the 2 years after zoning being approved. That's actually no longer relevant because obviously the committee does have a little bit of a backlog given COVID circumstances. So we're actually 2 years distant now from that council decision, but I just want to let everybody know where that's coming from and what it's about. That obviously did come on the back of a good deal of discussion with the councillor and with the Ratepayers Association about the changes being done. So rest assured there has been lots of discussion with the community and the councillor's office, as well as obviously all staff. As you can see, there's no comments in opposition of the application. I would, broadly characterize the variances under 2 different types of categories. The first being variances associated with internal shuffling of the floor plans and various technical variances that come out of that. So in essence, on the ground floor previously there was 2 commercial units and that was it. There's been reshuffling of that first floor plan, which has resulted in 3 additional residential units being added to the building. and as a result, an increase in the residential GFA of the building, but not in the gross GFA of the building, as well as an increase to the number of units, a very, very minor decrease in the amount of indoor amenity space, 8 meters squared, as well as obviously provisions in the bylaw with respect to requiring a loading space for 31 units and above. So again, tagged to that internal shuffling of the floor space. And lastly, a variance with respect to residential uses being located above the commercial uses, whereas now we obviously have residential uses also on the first floor. The second pot of variances I'll categorize as built form related, and that is the change with respect to the zoning schedule and the encroachment of roof eaves in the front yard. As I'm sure you're aware, as typical on a mid-rise site, the rear yard setbacks are generally consistent on these buildings as they step back and basically maximize the angular plane. The original proposal did have a couple of little jut-ins where the building was a little bit further from the angular plane. So in essence, the setback related matters provide for a consistent terracing of the building backwards. So all portions of the building remain outside of the angular plane, if that makes sense. But instead of a jogging of the terraces in the rear, you now have a consistent setback. And so if you look at the second, third, fourth, and fifth stories, you'll just notice that the terracing is parallel and in one line rather than having jogs in and out. And then the roof eaves are simply a projection of 0.3 meters additionally at the front of the building, and that just provides weather protection and architectural interest at the front of the building. The only other item I would like to note and dwell on for 1 second is the indoor amenity space and that decrease of 8 meters squared from 70 to 70, or from 78 to 70. I'd like to point out that with 33 units, typically a building conforming to the new City of Toronto standards of 2 meters squared of indoor amenity space per unit would require 66 meters squared. So this building, even at 70 meters, is above and beyond what would typically be required of the bylaw. In addition to that, though, I would say that in addition to that decrease of 8 meters squared, there's been an addition of 140 meters squared of outdoor amenity space.
I must ask you.
Revised proposal. So
I must ask you for your final comment, please.
Yep. No, that is it. I just wanted to point out that there's now 200 meters squared of outdoor. So the slight reduction in indoor has been offset by a massive increase in the amount of outdoor space. So again, happy to take any questions that are more specific to any one of the variances or address comments from the area residents.
Thank you very much. Let's hear first from the person registered to speak in interest.
Can we just,
okay.
before we proceed?
Chair, I have a question.
Okay.
Just for clarification.
Go ahead.
I noticed in my review of the application, in the letter from the applicant's agent on August the 18th, they're saying that it's now a 6-story building, not a 7-story building, which the notice reflects, and also would be the subject of variance number 5. I just wanted to confirm that I've read that correctly, and that the public notice in terms of the purpose would have to change, and that they are no longer asking for variance number 5. Could I just get confirmation of that, or am I mistaken in what I have reviewed?
No, I'm happy to speak to that. I'm happy to speak to that, Joanne. Thank you. So with respect to that variance, there was some discussion between the building department and planning with respect to, and frankly, we're just information takers in this regard. Obviously, the zoning department makes their determinations with respect to whether the portion of the building that provides access to the rooftop amenity space should properly be considered a story or not. So there was a revised zoning notice issued in March that indicated that zoning had come to the determination that that rooftop access, just being an access, would not be considered a story. So that I think an old variance or an old PPR zoning notice was provided originally, and I think in error. And that was the subject of what went out to the, in the public notice, including that variance. That variance is not required per the March 3rd zoning notice. Therefore, we don't require it right now, and that was the reason we sent it in prior to the committee's deadline to provide that additional information. So no, that variance is not required.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Salomon?
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand, because I was totally confused looking at the proposed variances and looking at the plans, because the plans show only a 6-story building and the proposal for the variances was 7 stories. So I could not make heads or tails of what I was looking at. So now I really don't understand what is being proposed.
Yeah, so my apologies for that, and I can give you some background. If the committee could pull up the plan submitted to the Committee of Adjustment, I think I can help in this regard. So if you could scroll forward to A2.08, which is the 6th floor plan. So you'll note here that this is the 6th floor on the building, which has functional space for units. Going forward to the next plan, which is A209, you'll see the rooftop amenity area, and you'll note that the only items on here are obviously access to indoor elements in any event, are access to that rooftop amenity by stair and by elevator, and the mechanical penthouse. So zoning staff had originally deemed that access to the rooftop amenity as a 7-story, but upon some clarification, and so that was in January. In March, they determined, after clarification was provided by our architect to them, that rooftop access would not count as a story pursuant to the bylaw, and therefore it's a 6-story building and no variance is required. I hope that was clear.
That's great, thank you.
No problem, and I apologize for the confusion at the outset.
Okay, good. These are good things to clarify. Any further questions at this stage for the applicant? Okay, then, let's go to the registered speaker standing by.
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Did the agent delete then minor variance number 5? Just to confirm.
Quick question from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer is, are you deleting minor variance number 5 or leaving it in? This question is to the agent.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was internal. Yeah, our intention with providing the revised zoning notice was that we did not need to proceed with that variance, as zoning's clarified that it's not necessary.
So we are, at your request, we are going to strike that from the application, and we'll be considering the application minus number 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's important.
Chair.
Okay, then we'll ask the parties standing by in interest to join us and state your names as you do so, please.
Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Ellisad, you are unmuted on our end. If you can refrain from unmuting yourself through WebEx. You are able to speak now if your microphone is turned up or plugged in. Chair, it seems like there's no audio feedback from their microphone. I can try giving them a call.
I think it's important we do that, so we'll just take a minute. Yep.
Chair, just while we're waiting, I think that if variance 5 is being deleted, then we should have a look at the purpose and change that as well to a 6-story building instead of a 7.
That sounds
just for
important.
Consistency.
Most important. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thanks.
So we'll just applicant, we're going to change the purpose of the application to reflect what you've just advised us, that minor variance number 5 is struck at your request. That changes the purpose of the application. It should now read to construct a 6-story apartment building. So we're going to make that change, consistent with what you've directed us to do as far as number 5 goes.
Hi, Dinah. You are unmuted.
Hi.
There you are.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This will be brief.
Could you just to begin, please state your name for us.
Sorry, Dinah Elisat.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead with your comments.
Thank you. My purpose was actually to speak to number 5 because it was unclear whether it would be a 6-story or a 7-story, and we as a community had lobbied very hard for a 6-story building to mix in with what we have in our neighborhood. So I'm grateful that this has been such an easy fix, that it was just a mix-up of language for us and for this community. So I have nothing further to add. That was my only concern, and everything else is okay.
Well, we're glad that your concern was dealt with so straightforwardly, and thanks for your input.
Thanks for having.
Bye for now. Okay. Then,
Maybe after the next one, after this one.
having had the registered speaker speak with us, there is in fact, no opposition to rebut. So, that being the case, we can now go into committee on this application as we've amended it, as it's been amended, and I look to panel for a motion. If anyone is prepared with a motion, please. Mr. Reed.
I'm happy to bring forward a motion for approval. I think the variances being requested are minor and are the result of small design changes that happen through the detailed design process of a project, and there are very few changes to the exterior of the building. These are all minor and almost technical variances. So I move to approve, subject to development engineering conditions of May 25th, and also I guess the variances as revised, so with the removal of variance number 5 and with the purpose being revised to state 6-story instead of 7-story.
Is there a second? There is. Ms. Hayes, seconds. So it is moved and seconded to approve the application as amended, subject to the provisions that Mr. Reed stated, which were development engineering. And we'll now go to a vote. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote to carry the motion and to approve the application as amended. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Before we go on to the next item, we need to switch the YouTube stream. So it's only going to take a couple minutes. Yeah. Everyone watching on YouTube right now, there will be a new stream PM session.